recognize in debate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And again, we've talked about this so much. Reason being is that we have a lot of concerns, members. And I'll be the first to say that everyday Floridians need a break. They absolutely need a break. The cost of living in our state is so high, especially compared to other states in the South. When I think about the impact of wars abroad and what that's showcasing on the cost of gas, electricity, the cost of groceries, it's clear that our constituents need a break. But that break needs to be impactful across the board, and it shouldn't be a gotcha. Because though this ballot summary says this will benefit taxpayers, it's not telling the full picture to our voters. In fact, there's absolutely no prevention, no shield for fines and fees to skyrocket somewhere else. There's no prevention of just increasing millage or shifting the burden onto renters, myself being a renter. Majority of my constituents, in fact, especially in the city of Orlando, are renters. And so when we're thinking about need-based relief, it really should be targeted and it should be thoughtful. You know, we have the Tax and Budget Commission meeting next year. That would be the more appropriate body to debate these issues holistically versus us turn something around in less than 2 days that has huge consequences where the ballot summary doesn't even match the language in the initiative. And it's also worth noting, we didn't have a chance to talk about this because of the timed questions, but there's a constitutionality question here. You know, we're setting new standards for different type of residents, for different type of voters. And I would not be surprised if you will see litigation on this initiative because of the concerns as it pertains to treating different types of residents unfairly compared to what has historically been practiced and outlined in our state constitution. With that, I just want to talk about some of the services that, unfortunately, if this were to be implemented, would be on that chopping block. We already talked a lot about some of these examples of major impact, from police and fire to veteran services and so forth. I also want to take a moment to lift up our public libraries, our domestic violence shelters, our animal shelters, our parks and rec, our after-school programs. You know, the role of local government has really grown as the federal government, the state government has pulled back. For example, housing affordability really is seen as historically a tri-level responsibility, fed, state, and locals, but the weight really falls more on locals than anyone else. And the state may appropriate some dollars, but it's locals who have to pursue the additional investment, the zoning, the programs around it. And so we talk a lot about how budgets have grown, but still has inflation, still have populations, and so have demands. And so with that said, members, I really want to encourage us to think about how this impacts the everyday Floridian who's a renter, who doesn't have the ability to buy books or go to private options that leans on these public services, that will be the first to get cut. And that's my concern, is that this is not a tax break, this is a tax shift. And we tell the voters how much they might save, but we don't explain to them what they're going to lose. And for those reasons, I really encourage us to vote down on this HJR. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.